Thank you very much.
Mr. Regular scheduled land use board meeting, official notice of the time, date, and location of the regular public meeting, where formal action may or may not be taken, was given by publication in the Express Times. In addition, notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and published on the municipal website and given to the township clerk. Roll call.
Mr. Conley.
Here.
Mr. Kress.
Here.
Mr. Wilkins.
Here.
Mr. Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Waters.
Here.
Mr. Feller.
Here.
Chair Jewell.
Here. Join in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is the minutes from the June 15th meeting, which was our last meeting. Any additions, corrections, or omissions to be noted?
There was one small one, but you pointed out I just added the meadows to read one comment.
Yeah, that was kind of vague there.
Yeah.
I make a motion with said correction.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Kress.
Yes.
Mr. Wilkins.
Abstain.
Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Waters.
Yes.
Mr. Feller.
Yes.
Mr. Conley.
Yes.
And Chair Jewell.
Yes. Application 2606 is going to be carried to the September 21st meeting. If anybody's here for that case, was Charles Matarazzo for block 2710, lot 1. That will not be heard tonight.
And just, if you're aware and here for this application for Matarazzo, it's going to be carried without further notice. So this is your notice. You're going to have to come to the September 21st, 2026 meeting. You're not going to have any further notice as to that.
Okay, next case will be 2608 V20 Energy.
Do I need to come up, or is this just a completeness hearing?
Yeah, you come forward.
So regarding the application, this is for completeness. I published a completeness letter dated July 22nd. At the time of the application that we received, there was a number of documents that were missing, so we were not able to really follow through with the completeness review. So needless to say, at that point in time, the application was incomplete. The applicant has since, I believe, submitted by email. I don't actually have a physical package yet to review, but he did submit it, I believe, outside of the 10-day window, so I didn't even have a chance to look at it. So based upon that, I just have to say that the application has been complete.
Okay. Someone want to make that motion?
I make the motion deemed incomplete.
I'll second. There's no further discussion, roll call?
Mr. Wilkins.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Waters.
Yes.
Mr. Feller.
Yes.
Mr. Conley.
Yes.
Mr. Kress.
Yes.
And Chair Jewell.
Yes.
So I need to get that my engineer to get back with you.
Yeah, I need to get the full application and send it to both the secretary, and then you can just, right, you just have him send it directly to us, right?
I've been having to send you a copy.
Yeah.
This is quick.
So you just put the whole thing together and send it to my office.
You think you have the package now, you said?
It was only by email, I don't have the physical package.
All right, very good, thank you.
Yep.
Can we ask Mike a question, or is it not until the next meeting? Okay, thank you.
All right, next is Giant Gymnastics, case number 2401.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gordon Heffley on behalf of the applicant, is the attorney that got this approval for Giant Gymnastics. It's a gymnastics training facility on Blau Road. And obtained approval from the board back June 17th, 2024. And tonight, I'm here very briefly, just simply to request an extension of that approval. But that as well allows the applicant to have a 2-year protection period and 3 1-year extensions. We haven't built out the site yet, but we do anticipate starting construction within the next 6 to 12 months or so. We had some issues in terms of getting the financing in place for that because of some of the post-COVID financial concerns and whatnot of the gym. In the meantime, that's all been taken care of. We now have all of that in place, and we're going to proceed with the construction of that training facility. And so the board has the right under the land use law, and I think for outside issues such as what we've encountered here to grant extensions, and you can grant up to 3 years, but I think at this point 1 year would be sufficient because we do anticipate starting construction. Nothing's changed on the site. The zoning is still the same. All of the variances are still the same. Nothing has changed in terms of what the board would have, from what you approved in the first place. So based upon all of that, we would request a 1-year extension, which would run it from June till June 17th of 27.
Someone want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion, Chair, for another year.
I'll second. No further discussion, roll call?
Mr. Rogas?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Waters?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Cullen?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
And Chair Jordan?
Yes.
Thanks. Have a nice evening.
Next case, 2604, Joseph Bonanno, Michael Negro. It's a site plan, use variance, completeness, and possible hearing.
So Chairman, 2 items of housekeeping on this. Obviously, there's a D variance involved, so the class 1 and class 2 members are going to have to step down. To that end, I believe that we'll use a quorum of 5. The applicant is aware that we require an affirmative vote of 5. It's going to be up to the applicant if they wish to proceed tonight. Certainly, if they wish an extension or an adjournment, that is appropriate, as they are entitled to have 7 voting members. That being said, I also want to put on the record that I have historically done in the past work for JCD Development. That is at least somewhat of a predecessor to Mr. Bonanno. That was over 5 years ago. It's not a current matter. It's certainly not a matter that was related to this. It was in a different county completely. Haven't represented them since. I just want to put that on the record.
Thank you, and good evening, Chairman, members of the board, board professionals. Luke Pontier of the law firm Dave Pitney, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicants Joseph Bonanno and Michael Nigro. This property is located at 680 State Route 57, which is designated as Block 1508, Lot 1 on the township's tax map. The property is approximately 4.585 acres and is located in the R2 Residence District. We are here this evening seeking preliminary and final site plan approval along with use and bulk variance relief. But before we get into the substance of the application, I understand that there are some completeness items to address based on the memorandum issued by your board's engineer.
there were a number of items that were addressed after our initial completeness letter, and then after the board granted, deemed it incomplete. Since then, the applicant has provided updated plans dated June 17th, as well as they provided will serve letters from the utility companies, and then some color photos of the site, which are all part of the checklist items. So there were a number of items from both preliminary as well as final checklist and variance checklist. Well, not actually the variance checklist, other than the Lorraine County Health Department soil laws. But for the most part, I was able to go through the list and provided with this letter, July 21st, outlining that for the most part, there's a number of things that can be checked off and given waivers, I think, for these items. Now, one thing that I would say is if the board decides to change their mind on any of the subject matter within the checklist item, you can certainly ask for that information going forward. But for the most part, I do recommend that the application be complete, subject to the board granting the waivers to this group.
Thank you, and we'll be happy to address any questions that the board may have about the waivers.
Should we go over waivers? What were you requesting?
Yes.
Sure, so on the variance checklist, as Mr. Kwame noted, we are just seeking a waiver from providing the health department application with soil logs at this time. We're requesting a temporary waiver to be able to provide that as a condition of an approval if we are fortunate to receive one. On the preliminary site plan checklist, we are requesting a waiver from providing a community services impact statement, which will be addressed through testimony in terms of impact on the community, and a waiver from providing the environmental impact statement, again with environmental testimony to be provided to the extent there's any by our engineer. The last waiver on the preliminary site plan checklist is for the key location map on 8.5 by 11 paper. We did submit a key map on sheet 1 of the site plan, and so we'd be requesting a waiver to the extent that it's not on other sheets. For the final site plan checklist, we'd be requesting that same waiver with respect to the key location map. We did provide it on sheet 1, but we do not have it on the other sheets. In terms of site and sign and lighting design and details, we did provide a lighting plan as well as some signage, but should the applicant be fortunate to receive an approval, we'd be happy to provide any further details that are requested as a condition of that approval. In terms of utilities approvals, we did submit will serve requests to utilities, but we would request a temporary partial waiver until we receive responses from the various utilities. In terms of off-site and off-track improvements, that is something that would get addressed as a condition of approval. Our engineer would prepare a cost estimate as well, which would be included with that list of improvements. In terms of fire prevention measures, we have forwarded plans to the fire official and would request a temporary waiver while we receive any feedback. I believe that is a list of the waivers that we're requesting.
Are there any hydrants down that far? I don't think there is. Is there any hydrants? There's nothing down that far.
They would have to extend the water main to the site.
On the top of the hill.
Yeah.
So,
Does somebody want to make a motion to deem this application complete and not approve those waivers?
I move to deem it complete. Approved waivers. I'll second.
Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Mr. Rivas?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Mr. Feller?
Yes.
Chair Jewel?
Yes.
Question. Question.
No, sir, not right now, sir.
Not now.
Not sir. No question.
Thank you, Board. We appreciate you granting those waiver requests. As I said, I am Luke Pontier from Dave Pitney here this evening on behalf of the applicant, and we're here seeking preliminary and final site plan approval along with use and bulk variance relief. I do understand that there are 5 voting members this evening. If it's okay with the board, we would propose to get started with our testimony. We'd like to put on the application and hear the feedback of the board, and then we can see how the application is progressing. We are seeking approval to demolish the existing structures on the property and then construct 3 industrial buildings to be used for self-storage. Each of these proposed buildings has loading areas and spaces associated with the units, and the applicant is also proposing to install 25 parking spaces, including a required number of electric vehicle charging stations and handicap accessible spaces, along with stormwater management improvements, landscaping, lighting, signage, and other related site improvements. Since self-storage is not a permitted use within the R2 zone, we are here seeking a use variance this evening. We're also seeking a use variance relief to permit 3 buildings on 1 lot, where no more than 1 principal use or building is permitted on any 1 lot. For that variance, as well as some of the other variances that you'll hear about, it really is a nature of proposing industrial buildings in a residential area, in a residential zone. If this were an industrial zone, which you'll hear about from our professionals, they would be permitted to have 3 buildings on a single lot. And you'll hear why having 3 buildings is a preferable option to having 1 building. In terms of some additional relief, we are seeking a variance related to signage, and that's both the location and area of the freestanding sign, as well as the area and number of wall-mounted signs. And again, that's because of the nature of us being in a residential zone. You're not permitted to have commercial-type signage, but if we were in the industrial zone, the signage that's proposed does meet the requirements of the industrial zone in town. We're also seeking a design waiver to permit 2 loading spaces where 3 are required. And we're also seeking a design waiver from the required number of parking spaces. As I mentioned, we are proposing 25 spaces. The extent of that design waiver is something to be determined by the board, which was notated in your planner's memorandum, whether you calculate this use as an other use, which would trigger the need for 485 parking spaces, or a warehouse similar use, which would trigger the need for 121 parking spaces. But you'll hear testimony from our professionals on why 25 is an appropriate number for the proposed project. We did receive letters of review from your board planner, which was dated August 14th, 2026, and from your engineer, which was a completeness and technical review dated July 21st, 2026. In terms of our presentation this evening, we have our project engineer, Mark Walker of Dykstra Walker. We have our architect, Will McGeever, and we have our project planner, Matt Flynn. Notice was provided to all property owners within 200 feet of the site and was also published in the local newspaper, each as required by applicable law. At this time, unless the board has any preliminary items that they'd like to address or any preliminary questions, we can get started with testimony.
I think you can start.
Go ahead. If we could have about 30 seconds for our engineer to set up his exhibit, please.
No, we get it.
Thank you.
Everybody?
Yeah, can you turn that on an angle so that they can see it too and people in the audience can see it? Well, kind of, go parallel with the wall so everybody can see it. It's fine.
Mr. Walker, you raise your right hand. You swear affirm that the testimony about this disclose the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, sir, and ask your records.
Mark Walker, W-A-L-K-E-R.
Thank you, sister.
And Mr. Walker, for the board, can you please describe your education, experience, qualifications, and licenses?
Sure, I hold a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Northeastern University and a master's degree in environmental engineering from NJIT. And I've been a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 1991. And my license has been current the whole time, and I've testified in front of most boards in northern New Jersey. I have not testified in front of this particular board.
We accept you as a professional.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker, did your office prepare the plans that were submitted to the board last revised June 17th?
Yes, we did.
And did you prepare an exhibit for this evening?
We do have an exhibit, and it's on the board. I guess we'll mark that as Exhibit A1 with today's date. That's 24 by 36 inch sheet. It's a aerial photograph with a rendered site plan superimposed over it. It shows the surrounding areas around the subject property. And we also have these 11 by 17s that we'd like to hand out so everybody can see it a little closer, if you don't mind. Thanks. All right, so I guess we can just jump right into it.
Sure. If you wouldn't mind orientating the board to the property that we're discussing this evening?
All right, so the exhibit they have is subject property, which is 680 Route 57, and it's 4.585 acres, located, as I mentioned, on Route 57. We also have some frontage on Colmar Road, which is a side street, so it's a small street with some residential homes on it. It's about 12 feet wide. It might get a little wider as it gets closer to Route 57, maybe 16 feet wide. Do we have any of those extra exhibits from that? So, as you can see on Exhibit A1, to the right of the exhibit, which is to the east, there's an unnamed tributary to the Musconetcong River, and that tributary actually has a 300-foot riparian buffer associated with it, and we've shown the buffer on the plan, which encroaches onto the property slightly. And there's actually an existing dwelling on the corner of 57 and Colmar Road. So the existing dwelling and the associated buildings with that dwelling would all be coming down as part of this. This property, back in 2022, for some reason was merged. It used to be 2 lots. Now it's 1 lot. So we filed it as such. It's lot 1, block 1508. So we have filed with the DEP for the flood hazard area verification, and we received a determination that the creek has a 300-foot riparian buffer, and there are also no wetlands or transition areas on the subject property. The property basically gently slopes from the west to the east towards Kumar Road. The average grade is about 7 to 8% across the property. The majority of the property is wooded. There is a driveway that was illegally constructed at some point. There were no permits granted. So that will be obviously cleaned up as a part of this application. And then with respect to utilities, there's no water line or gas line along our frontage. We would be extending the gas and the water from Harrison Street approximately 1,000 feet to get to the site. That would go along Route 57 behind the curve. So we've extended. Currently, those utilities serve the Mansfield Meadows, which is the age-restricted project built by Ryan Homes, which is across the street. So we would have to extend the water line and the gas line down to serve the project. And then on Kumar Road, there is on the corner of Anderson Road and Kumar, which is to the southeast, there is an existing inlet. And the importance of that is that's a good location for our project to tie in with the stormwater. And that stormwater discharges down at the unnamed tributary that's giving us the 300-foot riparian buffer. So it kind of gives you the lay of the land. The majority of the properties around us are residential zone. Our property is also zoned residential R2. Across the street, there's a motel. But all the other properties are residential. With that said, our proposed project is to.
Just before you get to the proposed, although there are residential uses across the street, other than the motel, is zoned industrial across Route 57, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Now, if you would like to take the board through the proposed improvements.
Okay. So we are proposing 3 buildings. So building C is the largest building, which is to the east, and then going up the hill is building A, and then building B, building B, and then building A. The total building square footage of building coverage is 48,513 square feet, which is about 24% of the lot area. Now, each one of these buildings will be 2 stories, and because we have this gentle slope, we're able to create a situation kind of similar to this building, where on one side you have 2 stories, and on the high side you have 1 story. So this project will have the same type of layout, where access will be allowed to the lower story on the easterly side and the upper story on the westerly side on each one of these buildings. And it works out really well. We've actually done another project almost identical to this, but it was with 2 larger buildings, which was in Randolph on Route 10, and they actually constructed it, and it works great. We've really just kind of followed the same playbook as that particular project. One thing that works well for this type of layout and self-storage is they don't need an interior elevator because they have access from the high end and the low end, so we can eliminate the need for that elevator access. The impervious cover with the access road that fully loops around and in between buildings works out to 106,476 square feet, or 53% of the lot. And the actual square footage of the buildings, when you factor in the floor, the 2 floors for each building, is 97,026 square feet. So that's the total floor area of the buildings. Now, the way the site's going to work as far as access, we found an access permit with the DOT. We actually just got some comments back from the DOT very recently for our proposed ingress and egress point. DOT access permits required. Coming into the site, there's one main point of ingress and egress. There'll be no access to Kumar Road at all. The only access point will be right off from Route 57. So entering into the site, person coming to the site for the first time, there are 4 parking spaces in front of the office building where people will have the ability to park, go in, introduce themselves, make arrangements to obtain a storage unit. And then once people start coming to the site, more often they can come into the site and make a right, or they can go across the front of building C and enter through a gate at that area. So there'll be automatic gates. So once you've paid your account and your account's good, you'll pull up to the gate. The gate will have a reader on your windshield, and if your account's paid for, the gate will open and you'll be able to go in, similar to leaving, same situation. So what we also have, we have these doors that are accessible with kind of like a garage door unit. They're really flexible type units. And then on the interior of the building are interior units, and there's 2 points of access to those interior units on each side of each building, except for the back end of Building A on the west side, where it gets really narrow. There's only need for one pedestrian access point. So that fence will wrap around and tie into the berm that we have shown. We've got a large strip of evergreens proposed between the proposed development and the adjacent residential properties. And we have on the easterly side of Building C, we have a loading dock area where trucks can actually back into the building and load and unload. And our architect will discuss that a little bit more in detail. He's actually an expert in these types of facilities, and we've worked with him on another project. So you're going to learn a lot from him operationally about these particular types of projects. Now, the site itself, we do not have access to sanitary sewer. So we will have a septic system. So with self-storage, the septic system is very small, right? So given the riparian buffer from the stream, the need for stormwater management, the only location to put the sewage disposal bed was on the westerly side over by Building A. So Building C, we're anticipating the bathrooms would be in there. And there's an opportunity to have bathrooms in Building B and Building A. Those 2 buildings will definitely have utility closets and sinks where the effluent will flow down towards Building C. We'll have a pump chamber, Building C, a septic tank, and then a pump chamber, and we'll pump the effluent up to the septic system. So we will need health department approval for the septic system. So we would be filing for that, subject to a positive decision by the board. So that's pretty much how we're going to go with the utilities. We have water, gas, sanitary sewer. With respect to stormwater management, we basically have 4 areas of stormwater management. We have the main stormwater detention basin that will handle all of the runoff from the paved areas. And that basin will do basically 3 things. It will treat the stormwater, and it'll infiltrate the stormwater into the ground, and there'll also be an outlet structure that will retain the water and hold it back. And then, as you can see on Exhibit A1, there's a head wall in that detention basin, and there's a white line, white dashed line, which is the outflow pipe that goes to Kumar Road, and then down Kumar Road will tie into that storm drain that I discussed earlier. Now, there was a comment from the town engineer that he wanted the road milled and repaved, and the applicant has no problem doing that, given that it's 12 feet wide, and we're going to put this pipe in there, we're going to really disturb that road surface. So that road will repave it from Route 57 to Anderson Road. So the infiltration, that basin will handle the water quality as well as infiltration and retain stormwater runoff for the 2, 10, and 100-year storm. And then in between each one of the buildings, starting on Building C, between Building C and the main detention basin, there will be an underground infiltration basin. And that will collect half of the roof area from Building C. And then between Building B and Building C, we'll have another underground infiltration basin that will collect the other half of the roof area from Building C and half of the roof area of Building B. And then between Building A and Building B, we'll have another infiltration area that will collect all of Building A and half of Building B. So we're able to infiltrate that stormwater directly into the ground without treating it for water quality, because the DEP determines that runoff is clean runoff because it's not touching the motor vehicle surface. It's just coming off of the roof and being infiltrated directly into the ground. So those 3 underground infiltration basins and the surface basin will all be connected together and ultimately drain down to the storm drain on Anderson Road. So we will be meeting all of our stormwater reductions as required by the DEP for the current regulations, as well as the future stormwater regulations, which are increased rainfall intensities that are anticipated in the year 2100. So we're meeting the stormwater requirements that would be anticipated for the year 2100. Now, looking at the lighting and the landscaping plan, we do have a sheet, the lighting landscaping plan, which is sheet 8. The majority of the lights are on buildings themselves. So the lights that are on the section where the building is 2 stories high would be approximately 21 feet high, because there's two stories. And then conversely, where you have the one-sided single elevation, will be shorter, will be about 12 feet in height. So we've met all of the lighting requirements around the site. There was a comment from the town engineer about providing some shields to make sure that there's no glare visibility of these lights. We have no objection to adding those onto the lighting plan. We've also provided a landscaping plan, and our landscaping plan is really heavy on the landscape berm and the white pines that separate our project from the residences adjacent to us. So those are proposed, shown on our plan to be 15 feet. And we've done a little research on the trees, and we can actually still get really good growth on the white pines if they're separated by 10 feet. So we can reduce the separation, planted separation from 15 feet to 10 feet. They live to be 150 years, and they grow and make a very, very dominant screen. And then also between the site and the residential area, there's a rock wall that runs partially on our property, partially on the neighbor's property. That wall will remain as is, except for the corner where our roadway turns from the southerly access drive and turns back around towards the lower part of Building C. We will, for a small, short section, be encroaching onto that rock wall. So there'll be a section that will get filled in by the berm. So, leading up to that discussion, we originally designed the site. We received some comments from the town engineer. They wanted earthwork calculations done. We determined that there was a lot of cut that had to come out of the site, right? So we looked at a couple of different options, and we actually think probably the best, and what we did with some of the extra material was to put a berm between the two properties, and then the white pines would go on top of the berm. It'd be like a 4 to 5 foot high berm with these white pines on there. So if we took the site and we raised it 2 feet, we're essentially getting it to balance out. We will have some material that will have to come out, but it's substantially less than what was originally anticipated. Please bear with me for 1 second, please. Okay, so we would reduce the cut from 13,000 cubic yards down to 4,000 cubic yards by raising the site 2 feet. So it makes a lot of sense to do that. Keep the soil on the site, keep the trucks off the road as much as possible. The only negative is that there are 2 retaining walls between the lower parking lot and Building C and the stormwater detention basin. We have, currently the way we have it proposed, there's 2 6-foot walls that are tiered, and 6-foot high retaining walls are the maximum height that's allowed per the ordinance. So we would have to raise those walls from 6 feet to 7 feet, and that would pick up our 2 feet. Each wall goes up an extra foot, and that gives us the extra 2 feet, and allows us to raise the site a couple of feet and reduce the removal of 10,000 cubic yards from the site. So at this time, we would request that particular variance, given my testimony. With respect to the other variances for the site, the self-storage use, because we're in a residential zone, is not permitted. And also 3 principal buildings on 1 lot is not permitted.
And Mr. Walker, just on that note, you touched on it briefly, but by providing the 3 buildings instead of 1, we're able to follow the topography of the property, but also to reduce the overall height of those buildings, correct?
That's correct. And you've seen a lot of these self-storage buildings. There are 3 4 stories. There's a lot of glass, it's a lot of show. We have very modest but very attractive buildings that are proposed. I think you'll be happy with the architectural renderings that we show you later. And it also gives us the opportunity to phase this project. So the idea is to build Building C, which is the largest building first, and then have a phasing plan. And we also did this in Randolph, and the units rented out relatively quickly, and they ended up basically just building the second building right away, right? But this gives the owner the ability to build the biggest building, which would be 56,000 square feet of self-storage space, and then we would separate that off from Building B and Building A. In our DOT permit plans that we submitted, we've shown a construction entrance on the far westerly end of the site. So Building B and Building A could be built completely without interfering with the operation of Building C. And the DOT had no objection to us using that as a temporary construction access. I think we're in good shape with them on that. It's a common sense approach to taking on this project. Given the project across the street, the area is definitely growing, and the studies that have been done, there's definitely a need for this type of project.
And Mr. Walker, when you say the project across the street, are you referring to the 226 or so homes that were built by Ryan Homes recently?
That's correct, Mansfield Meadows, right? Okay. So we are proposing some signage. We have freestanding sign and a wall-mounted sign. The freestanding sign is not allowed in the residential zone, so a variance is required. We're proposing 50 square feet. If we were in a commercial zone, we would be around 100 square feet. So consistent with what you would see driving along Route 57 for a commercial project, you could have 100 square feet. We're only proposing 50 square feet. And then the other freestanding sign variance, the setback in a residential zone is actually 25 feet. But again, under a commercial zone, 15 feet is allowed, and that's what we're proposing. We have our stormwater detention basin area that's pinching the location of where we want to put that sign. So we would like to be 15 feet. It's from the right of way, and then there's another 15 or 20 feet to get to the edge of the actual pavement. So people who are passing by would think that the sign is, good 30, 35 feet from the actual edge of pavement. We also need a sign variance for the building mounted signs. The number of signs proposed are 2 wall signs, and the wall sign area, where 2 wall signs are approximately 45 square feet each. We'll have some more testimony about the signage from our architect, but it's intended that the signs themselves will be interior illuminated, and that's what you'll see. And then just getting back to the site lighting, we will have a gated facility, but we do want security lighting around the site. So the thought there is after the facility's closed, it's intended for the hours of operation to be between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. And then after the close of business, the lights would be dimmed down from 100% down to 50%, or whatever level makes sense. We're willing to meet with the town engineer at the time of construction. These new LED lights, you have the ability to adjust the lighting levels with the automatic timers and other devices that are located inside the building. So, but we feel that there needs to be some level of lighting around the site. And we're not stuck on that 50%. It's just something that's been proposed in the past and approved by other boards. But we'd be fine discussing that in the field. Also, we're requiring a design waiver under the parking requirements. We're showing that we have 25 parking spaces that are proposed. We don't have 25 striped parking spaces. We have just 4 striped parking spaces. But what we do have, as you can see on Exhibit A1, is along the east side of the building and the west side of the building, we have 15-foot wide striped areas that allow people to just pull in next to their unit, and they can load and unload and be able to use that space in a more flexible manner than having a rigid striped parking area. So we found that actually works really well. We want some more testimony from our architect who's dealt with these types of facilities and the type of intensity and usage that these types of facilities actually get over time.
And Ms. Walker, we'll return to that when our architect is testifying, but just in your professional opinion, is there an experience with similar applications with 25 parking spaces be sufficient for this use?
Absolutely. There will be more than enough. As I mentioned, we have another project almost identical to this, and it's functioning perfectly well.
And you are proposing EV spaces and handicap accessible spaces?
We do have, as required, we do have a handicap parking space, and we will have a make-ready EV space. We've designated that space. It's the most northerly parking space in front of building C. Looking for what is the parking requirement? Do you have that?
So,
At 485?
so, and this is an item that's flagged in the planner's review memorandum in terms of an interpretation by the board and what parking requirement to use. Self-storage is not a specifically listed use within the parking regulations. So there is one category for warehouse and there is a category for other. If you were to use other, it would require 485 spaces, is that right?
That's correct.
And if you were to use the warehousing requirement, which I believe is based on 1 per 800 square feet, you'd be required to have 121 spaces.
That's correct. And those, again, as mentioned, those particular uses, those aren't what we're proposing. We're proposing self-storage. And under the ITE, which is the Institute of Traffic Engineers, they have a parking, and that's what we use to calculate our parking space. They have a parking requirement of 1 parking space for every 10,000 square feet. So, 25 parking spaces is more than enough. Once you compare that under the ITE, that would be about 10 parking spaces needed. And we're showing that we have room for 25 parking spaces, plus the 2 loading spaces.
And part of that, and we can return to this with the architect as well, but on the warehouse requirement, which may sound like a similar use, a warehouse would have many more employees, is that right?
Absolutely, right. Yeah, we're anticipating 1 employee to manage the whole facility.
Great.
So that's a design waiver for parking and a loading space waiver for this type of project. And the size of the project, the ordinance requires that we have 3 loading spaces. Again, this is not that type of project. This is a self-storage project, and our architect will discuss why 2 loading spaces make sense for this type of facility. And then there was some discussion in the engineer's report about needing waivers for landscaping, but because we're in a residential zone, the board planner has indicated that there's no waivers required for landscaping. So I guess with that said, we could go through the reports. Starting with the Boswell report from July 21st, 2026. Okay. Okay. All right, so technical review, page 4. I'm just going to go through the ones that I feel need some discussion rather than going through the entire report. B3 was the soil moving. There's still going to be, if the board agrees with raising the site 2 feet and granting the variances for the retaining walls, there's still going to be at 4,000 cubic yards, which would still need an application to the township committee. And then on page 5, number 2, it states in the back end of that, also the applicant should provide testimony that there will be no RV, boat, trailer, etc. parking storage on site. There will be nothing stored on the site. Everything will be stored in the building. The building heights, we actually, in going through our own internal review, the owner wanted, rather than having a flat roof, wanted to have a pitched roof. So we've actually recalculated the building heights. And basically the building slope from Route 57 to the rear of the site. So we have a taller facade along Route 57, and then the entire roof slopes back towards the rear. So the longer the building is, the taller it is, because you need to have that pitch, right? So for building C, the building height is 27.1 feet. Building B is 23.4. And the smallest building, building A, is 21.9. And again, in the residential zone, the building height requirement is 35 feet. So we're well under that, and we're well under 30 feet, which is a typical building height in a commercial zone. Sheet 2, number 1, the existing gravel driveway is not an improved driveway. I mentioned that in my initial testimony. Number 2, the existing topography that we used was from a LiDAR source, and the engineer's looking for some field survey to verify, so we will provide that information. Sheet 3, need to dimension all the walls, which we have no problem with. And we need, number 4 is designate, make ready space, which we actually have on our plan. And number 6, there's a concern about the location of the freestanding sign with respect to the retaining wall that I discussed. So we will have a type of sign where the post is 15 feet out and the sign will come back away from the street, so the post doesn't interfere with that retaining wall. So yeah, no parking near the hydrants. So we will need a review from the fire department on the project. Sheet 4 on page 6. There's a request to add an additional drainage inlet along the rear access drive, which we'll do in between building B and building C. We'll add in an additional inlet there, and then the double B inlet that we have down below will make it a single B inlet. Yep. And then number 3, we discussed the stone row, and that for a small section, we will be encroaching into that stone row. And then number 4 was the request for Kumar Road to be milled and paved, which we will do. Moving down to sheet 8, that was discussed. That was discussed. On to sheet 7. Number 5, we will have mulch on the berm area where the evergreens will be planted. And that mulch area will have to be maintained on a yearly basis to make sure that there's no erosion associated with it. Number 7 was the light fixtures and having some cutoff on the fixture itself to further protect the residents. Even without the cutoffs, we're meeting the lighting requirements of your ordinance. 10, the hours of the light fixtures. So there'll be from dusk till closing, and then a reduced level after closing for security lighting. Sheet 10 is the earthwork, which we discussed. That was really all I had on those comments to discuss. Obviously, there's plan revisions and details that need to be modified, and we agree to do all of that particular work. And then on sheet 9, the last comments for the architect. So moving on to the planner's report, which is from Collier's dated August 14th, 2026. The first page is just an overview. The third page is dealing with the variances and the criteria needed for us to prove the variances are valid. We have 2 D variances, so there's different levels of variances. D is a little bit more of a stringent type of variance, or C is a bulk variance, and then below that are some waivers which we've requested. And then moving on to page 4, we discussed the sign variances, and then below that the proofs that we need to put in for the sign variances. And then on page 5, the discussion of the design waivers for the loading space and the parking, which we've discussed in detail. Number 7, let's see, is dealing with the merger of the 2 lots, which are already merged. We'll provide the utility relocation. Number 3, we'll update the code section. Number 4, applicants shall provide details to sign illumination, so those will be provided. Number 5, sites in the residential zone, the proposed signage is associated with industrial and business use. It may be helpful for the board to compare the proposed signage to section 363-23, which regulates signs for industrial and business uses, and states that a freestanding sign shall be set back at least 15 feet from any right-of-way and not exceed 75 square feet. So we're 50 square feet, and we're proposing to be 15 feet. So we're in line with those specific requirements. And the 4 wall-mounted signs section indicates total sign area for all signs permitted on the face of the building shall not exceed 1 square foot of sign area for each square footage of frontage, provided the total sign area on any lot shall not exceed 100 square feet. The applicant will still require variance relief from the residential sign regulations, and the sign area proposed for the building mounted sign is 50 square feet, same as the freestanding sign. Height of pole mounted light fixture to be provided, so on our lighting plan, where each lighting fixture is shown on the plan, we actually state what the height of that light fixture is on the plan. Number 7, we'll provide the gate details. Number 8, code does not define self-storage use, and thus parking is calculated pursuant to general formula 361-77 for any uses not listed shall be a minimum of off-street parking requirements as listed in the code as 1 per 200. So we've discussed this, and also alternatively, the other parking ratio of 1 per 800. And then number 9 discusses the use of the ITE standard, which we've labeled on our plan, which we'll remove from our table, but we'll put in a footnote in our parking, in our zoning for our parking requirements. The applicants identified several striped loading and parking zones. These are not official parking spaces, so it suggests that the board should discuss and evaluate these waivers. The combined side yard is 44 feet. We will exceed that. That's number 11. Applicant number 12 is the building height, which we've discussed. Number 13, section 36379 does not require buffering in the R2 zone. It's helpful for the board to compare buffering requirements of section 36184, 36185 for non-residential, and residential. And so that's the report. I'd be glad to take any questions. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any additional questions on grants, but happy to address any questions from the board or its professionals.
Where's your electric coming from? You talked about gas and water.
Yeah. Let's see. Ultimately, it's going to have to be determined by the electric company, but we do have an overhead wire. Actually, right in that driveway is the existing utility pole that will have to be relocated. So we'll relocate that to the west, and we're anticipating picking up electric from that pole. If we need, we'll probably have a transformer either on the plant or on the pole, and we'll go right into the building and all our other utilities we got.
With your picture here, I can't speak to the one that you're talking about, but that's just cable and telephone there. There's no power on that side.
There
Must be power that originally serviced that house,
Yes.
but I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, there'll be a need for a new pole and new electrical to come either up. DOT has not discussed going underground without electric, so I think we're gonna go overhead, all the other electric in the right of ways overhead, but once it gets to the pole, we'll go underground from the pole into the building.
John, on the plan, they're showing overhead wire.
Where?
Going up,
Yeah, right near the entryway of our site, there's a pole with an overhead wire.
and they're showing poles too. There's one right on the
It's
intersection,
sheet 4 is really the one you gotta be looking at.
right on the intersection of Comar Road, there's a pole. And then I see the one he shows on the plan, it's just on the downhill side of the entrance.
Yeah, there's full electric on our side of the road. You can see it on sheet 4.
Well, like I said, there had to be something that serviced that house.
Yeah, yeah. There's overhead wires on both sides of the road, actually.
Right, but going up the hill is just communication. There's no power.
Okay.
That's, but it must stop at the one right before your proposed entrance. Okay.
Mr. Kwame, you got any questions?
I just was wondering about the grade. You could speak to the grade change between the residential property, say lot 202 and lot 203, lot 3. Can you describe the grade change between that and the finished floor of building C?
So we're talking about lot 202 and lot 3?
Yes.
Yeah, so, the rear yard, is elevation 434, and the proposed floor elevation is 467. The existing grade, at the building is 462. So we're raising the building up in that area. 6 feet.
I'm just wondering if one single row of plantings would be sufficient. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that. And then just the height of the plantings.
Yeah, so
Maybe the board would want to have kind of frame that, because that would be, I believe there's a good need for a good buffer between those properties, and then because of the massive grade change, because they're going to be looking at walls and buildings.
no, a good point. So the ordinance, if this was zoned commercial, the planting requirement would be a double row of evergreens. So, you have 2 here, 1 here, right? And they be spaced 10 feet apart. So we have no objection to doing that, and we'd like to plant 6 feet along the back property line. We're basically at grade with the properties adjacent to us. And then as we come around the corner, and we have the lower properties on lot 3 and lot 2.02, we could increase those plantings to 10 feet in that area. And again, we do the staggering double row of evergreens, yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
The basin and the underground tanks between each building would ensure that the runoff coming from west to east wouldn't affect 202 and lot 3.
That's correct. I mean, we're going to substantially reduce the overland flow from the site. Right now, the water basically drains all to Kumar Road. All of the water that on our site, almost all of the water on our site above the detention basin will be collected and discharged into the basin and then routed through the pipe that'll tie into the storm drain on Anderson Road. So just looking at it, right now our site's like 5.5 acres. I would say 3.5 to 4 acres that used to flow overland to the road will be collected and piped to that inlet. So there'll be a substantial reduction of flow to the neighborhood.
Now, in the site layout plan, we keep talking about the parking. You have 4 parking spots which are shown on the plan by the office. And then you're indicating there's 21 various parking spots that where people can pull up alongside the buildings, is that?
That's correct, yeah.
But they're not designated as parking spaces?
We're not designating them as parking spaces. There's an on-site manager, somebody's in the building and somebody happens to block somebody's storage unit, they'll reach out to the on-site manager, he'll find, I mean, the likelihood of this happening is incredibly remote, but having the on-site manager there, and you'll hear testimony about, this is such a benign use. There's like, we only really, under the ITE, we only need 10 parking spaces, and we're showing that we have the ability for 25 parking spaces. The amount of people on this site at any one time is very limited. You'll hear some testimony about that.
Anybody know how many spaces they have over at the storage facility over by ShopRite? Does. I
don't know, but I know they store tractor trailers and boats and RVs there too.
I mean, that's been there a very long time, so.
That's a question I have. I've never used a storage facility. Is there a limitation as to what people can do at their storage facility?
I think we're gonna have to talk to operations about that.
Yeah, our architect will be providing some substantial operations testimony, and he's very familiar with all the various operators of these and can provide you with information on that.
Okay, I'm just, somebody rebuilding.
I think the short answer is yes, but he'll let you know all about that.
I have a question for Mr. Palmer. Yeah. During heavy rain, with all that water coming down into the pipe through Colmar, is there going to be any detrimental effect to that unnamed stream across the road?
Well, first off, the design has to meet the stormwater regulations. And so the stormwater regulations are very intensive. It's a major development, so as the testimony was provided already, they're going to have to meet quality, they're going to have to meet quantity, green infrastructure, infiltration, all of it. And we've got a good start. We've addressed some, we've got a number of comments, which I'm sure that your testimony said you have no problem providing. We still have to work through some of it, but in general, we've got a good start on the design. And, at the end, it will meet all of those requirements.
I think just to add to that, like one of the benefits of the new stormwater regulations is they don't let you bring more than, I think it's 2.5 acres to any one stormwater area. Like back in the day, you used to just put a hole in the ground and just take everything and dump it into one area. And that creates a lot of stress on that ground in that particular area. In this particular instance, we have 4 separate areas where there's infiltration taking place. So this stormwater is getting spread out over the entire site. So it's really a great way to manage the stormwater. And it is very, as Mr. Conley mentioned, it is very intensive. The regulations are some of the most difficult regulations in the entire country. And a lot of the older engineers, we actually do stormwater management for them because they just can't get their brain around these requirements. They're very difficult. And I don't know if you guys got copies of the stormwater report when we handed out the plans and the stormwater. It's very substantial.
Well, we have to do training on it every year.
Yeah, we do continuing education. Yeah.
So the storm drain on Anderson Road can handle all the water coming off of these?
It all goes there today.
Yeah, not out of one pipe.
No, look at the size of the pipes though. The pipe that crosses,
That's my point.
no, the pipe that crosses Anderson and goes down Anderson is 24. The pipe that comes down from down Comar is 18. The pipe that comes out of the stormwater detention is 15. So there's a small pipe going into a bigger pipe going into a much bigger pipe.
And there's an outlet structure in the detention basin that has a 3-inch orifice in it. So that's, for the majority of the volume, that's all that's getting out of that detention basin. And then for an extreme event, there's a weir that will allow more water to overflow.
And then your for lack of a better word here, retention basins between the buildings. Their size, I would imagine, depending on what the perk is.
Yeah, they're sized to infiltrate the roof areas, right? And then we have three, I mean, there's the amount of piping underneath there and stone is pretty substantial. You can see that again on sheet 4, the size of those underground basins. They're, just to give you an idea, the lower one is 193 linear feet of 36-inch diameter pipe. The middle basin is 145 linear feet of 36-inch diameter pipe, and the upper basin is 93 linear feet of 36-inch diameter pipe. So we have, and all of that's wrapped in stone. So the water goes into those pipes and it infiltrates into the ground.
I mean, just to respond to that too, the soil testing has been done, there's test pits all on that sheet, you can see the information's provided on the top, so obviously, it all hinges on the soil.
Right.
You can have the best design in the world, and make it look nice, but if the soils don't receive the water, so the soil testing has been done, is in review as well, just to make sure that it infiltrates properly in the amount of time that's required by DEP.
I'm going to open it up to the public. Anybody?
I just had two questions just for the witness, just to clarify, just to get it on the record. In between the buildings on Exhibit A1, you do show some white striping on each side of the building. That's when we're presuming that people will park, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And this time you believe that there's plenty of parking there for the demand?
And you'll hear more testimony about that.
That's fine. And also, just for the benefit of the record, just address the impact of the Highlands or non-impact of the Highlands.
Okay. Let's see, are we in the Highlands? We're in the planning area.
Yep.
So there's no impact to the planning area. There's no specific rules for the Highlands on this property.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
Do you have any idea of how much traffic's going to be coming in and out each day?
We will have some testimony about that use and the intensity or lack of intensity for the site.
So when you come up to the dais, state your name and your address, and then you address the engineer. Come up.
My name is Peter Watson. I live in Mansfield Meadows. I had 3 objections and a couple comments for consideration.
So you're going to have a chance to object. You're going to object under oath. This is just the opportunity to ask this witness questions related to his testimony.
Thank you.
After every witness, there's going to be an opportunity to ask that witness questions. If you have something to say, you got to wait till the end when it's open to the public.
Thank you for the correction. So the industrial area across the street that you commented on, I don't believe it's actually across the street unless you're referring to the facility that's currently under sale off the state police barracks. That's the one industrial area I'm aware of that's west of what you're discussing and our development in Mansfield Meadows. It's on the other side of the hill, opposite the barracks, not visible from your facility or Mansfield Meadows. Is that correct?
It's just zoned industrial. There's mostly residential use, probably where you live, right?
Correct.
So, and then there's the one motel. And that's about it for it's just, the zoning is just industrial. So I imagine that your development received some sort of use variance to build that project.
Our development, I don't know if this is another question, but to answer your comment, the Mansfield Meadows development borders on the motel and then goes to the building alongside. So it is not actually, which is the reason I asked the comment, an industrial area across the street from yours. It's only residential, and the one you commented on, the only one I'm aware of, is the one on the far side of the state these boundaries. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we're not talking
I
like
just want to make sure
square,
that you
just
did understand the statement.
Yeah, the response was that there's a distinction between what zone it is and what the township and the governing body have decided that that property should be used for from a zoning perspective versus the use that actually sits there today. So the property, that the testimony was that the property actually that Mansfield Meadows is on, and all of the property across Route 57 from this site is all zoned industrial, regardless of what's actually there. It is zoned industrial, and the township governing body had decided that that would be a good location for industrial uses.
Thank you. I thought that was still residential. The other comment is you made a note that all the lights are 21 feet off the ground. But I just heard testimony from you that the buildings are 21 feet high, 22.4, and 27 feet high. When I looked at the drawings, you've got, they don't specify watts or kilowatts on the lifestyle source, but you've got 5 lights on building C, 4 lights at incline, 2 or 3 lights on building A, I'm sorry, ABC. So CS5 lights, BS4 lights, CS3 lights. If the height of the building is 21, 22.4, and 27 respectively, are you then not putting the lights at 21 feet on the building, and they're going to be higher than the stated?
So actually, my testimony is where we had 2 stories exposed is where the 21 feet existed. And then on the 1-story side, they were 11 or 12 feet high.
Okay. So the comment about the statement on the drawing and your comment about the building being 27 feet high is relating to building C on the low side?
No, it's a calculation based on the average grade and the building height.
So the light is not going to be at the top of the building, it's going to be 21 feet up.
Correct.
On the 27 per building.
Correct.
Just want to make sure I didn't misunderstand that. And to be factual, there's 234 homes in Mansfield Meadows as built.
Okay.
Built in the last couple now. And most people are moved in, so the comment about the usefulness of a facility like this, in my opinion, is lower than it might have been if I'm the previous.
That's a comment?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Just keep correcting me if I'm wrong. Thank you very much.
Been here before. I'm here by resident, so I just have a lot of questions.
Okay.
So what specific criteria justifies the use of this?
We'll have a planner that will address that question in planning testimony.
This is just for the engineer.
The
Okay.
testimony that I gave. If you have questions about the site, I'll be glad to answer.
Sure. Just change my, sorry, so has a proper traffic study been performed with regard to peak hour traffic and truck activity?
We're filing for a DOT access permit. So there were traffic levels stated in that. We're actually going to have, from our operations side, we're going to have testimony about the intensity of the use of the site.
Has the permit been granted?
Yeah, it's not, we just received some review comments.
What if it isn't granted?
What's that?
What if it's not granted?
Oh, it will be granted. The comments were just change this, modify that.
Okay.
Right.
What conditions prevent a future owner from operating a more intensive use of what's been proposed tonight?
Well, we're getting a use variance, and the use variance is going to specifically say what we can do and what we can't do. Anything outside of that is a zoning violation and subject to the zoning officer issuing fines on the site.
So there's several variances regarding reductions to buffer and screening. Have there been any other mitigations proposed to reduce things like that nearby residents might see, noise, those kind of things?
We talked about that in my testimony. Mr. Kwame recommended putting some shields on the lights. The lighting as we have it designed meets all the town standards now. And they're all downwardly lit lights. All the lights are pointing straight down, and the fixtures are the light is inside the fixture, so it's not shining out
Do you
below.
have an idea what the intensity might be at the property lines?
Zero. The way the lighting is measured, there's no lighting intensity around the entire perimeter of our site. Along our right-of-way line on the state highway, we're only like 0.2 foot candles.
Splitting up the zoning questions to
Yep,
the engineering questions. Are there any backup alarms, generators, HVAC units, or refrigeration equipment for the unit? Will it be kind of controlled or anything like that that might produce noise?
That's our operations question. Come right up.
Maybe I should just wait for a lot of these. Was a noise study performed to show the reduction in the buffer and screening requirements is sufficient?
No news study done now.
But the applicant will be required to comply with all state noise regulations, correct?
That's right. It's one of the most quietest uses that you can have.
Right, but specifically more like because we're asking for variances to reduce the buffer and screening, are we confident that those noise levels and lighting levels will be met?
Yes.
Even with asking for
We
those?
will definitely be meeting the state noise standard.
But just to clarify for the record, although it was likely our public notice that you're citing, based on a further review by the board planner, it was determined that we are not actually required to seek any waivers in connection with the buffer. Because this is a residential zone, there's no buffer required.
All right, I suppose I'll just save my other questions for the operations expert.
There will also be a plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got to come back up.
I'm sorry, yeah. Peter Watson from Mansfield Meadows. I missed the second part of one question regarding the lighting. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Is that, has there been studies done over the fact that these lights are not projecting out into the area beyond your property line? They're going to go down and they're going to be lighting the building. So have there been any study done that actually determines if there's any effect on the wildlife that's traveling down through all the wooded area that you're currently going to demolish to build these three buildings? And now all the light sources are going to push them away from the Musconetron tributary that they're getting their water from?
There have not been any such study. No.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience have a question for the engineer?
How much area is covered with blacktop? Ratio compared to natural, so what's the wrong?
Coverage was 53, I think.
So, what's probably right here? 53%.
53% is blacktop?
Buildings or,
Entire site,
yeah, buildings or,
blacktop.
right, 53%.
How much land do you have left? Which is natural, absorb into the ground.
Limited disturbance, it's not limited disturbance. Uh, 4.5. We have disturbing, most of the site, we have,
Sorry, just to clarify the question, are you asking how much green space is left, or are you asking what part of the property will not be disturbed whatsoever as part of construction?
For runoff, to make sure the sewer, the water runoff is sufficient for the pipes passing on to Anderson.
yeah, well, we designing our stormwater management to handle any of the disturbance and impervious cover. So I don't have that number.
Is it not, I'm just a lawyer, but is it not 47 if we're doing 53% coverage? 47?
No, he's saying not touched, right?
No, he's saying green.
Just green, yes, so it'd be 47%.
Is that sufficient? I mean, I'm not an engineer, but for those pipes to support that?
It's in line with the township code.
It's a state, New Jersey state stormwater regulations, which I mentioned are some of the most difficult stormwater regulations to meet in the country. So we're meeting those stormwater regulations, not only for the rainfall events that happen today, but the projected rainfall events for the year 2100.
What size water line do you have coming in?
Excuse me?
What size water line you have planned coming in to facilities?
Water service.
Water service, yes.
So we'll match whatever the existing pipe is out there, but the maximum size would be 8 inches.
Now, how will it affect the homes? I mean, to know what the water pressure is.
Oh, not at all. We don't use any water. There's almost no water use to this facility. We flush the toilet once in a while, and the maintenance guy washes out his mop once in a while. That's it.
You have sprinkler systems?
There'll be some operational discussion about sprinklers and fire protection inside the building.
And the pitch of the roof, what pitch is that and how high is the roof from the base? Oh,
We'll have that discussion from the architect. Yeah, I'm the site engineer, and we have an architect, and we have a professional planner also.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Come up to the dais.
You have to speak up, man.
I'm sorry, Diane Sarah, Jackson Street,
How do you spell your last name?
MASSAR.
Thank you.
Question about, if you can point out the locations of the entrances and exits on the property, access to where they're going to be.
Okay. So looking at exhibit A1, we've got the motel across the street, Kumar Road's over here. Our entryway will be in this location. The existing home that will be taken down is in this easterly corner.
Your entryway and exit are the same thing? There's no other?
That's correct, just one way in, it's
Same way.
ingress and egress located in one end.
Okay, thank you.
William Brennan, 9 Kumar Road. The residents that are being taken down, do they have any underground utilities that have to be removed or relocated?
On Kumar Road?
Well,
Houses being taken.
the residents.
Yeah, all the, like there's probably a septic system in there that needs to be abandoned in accordance with local state, health department requirements. There may be a well that we would need to find out. There's a well, we'd have to seal it in accordance with local state requirements. But if there's a water line, we would need to disconnect that gas line. Well, there's no gas line in that area. And the electric, there's probably some overhead electric that goes to that.
Disconnected.
Just would need to be disconnected.
Okay, and trying to mill and pave home, is that Like, is it gonna be accessible for the residents to use that? It's a very small road, so.
Yeah, that would be worked out with the local police department. Most likely, we're gonna have some police on site to make sure there's accessibility. It's a rather short stretch of road, so I don't think the inconvenience is gonna be more than one day.
Okay. And I just want to talk
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience have a question, please?
Anybody else in the audience have a question for the engineer? Yep, you come up, set and crack.
So, you mentioned several times in your testimony about the expansive work being done to increase the stormwater runoff capability of the site to be able to handle that, with specific reference to the runoff for the buildings. But what about the stormwater runoff generated from the waterways and parking spaces that go into the basin?
That goes into the basin, that's correct. So there's 3 underground systems that are for the rooftop and 1 above ground basin for our pavement areas.
There's no concern with, like, hazardous material from vehicles being parked from waterways?
Well, that's part of what the basin design is for. It meets the best management practice requirements of the state of New Jersey.
Who will maintain the detention basin?
The owner, so it is it's a major project, so there's a requirement to create a maintenance manual that's recorded with the deed and also recorded with the municipality. And there are inspections on a quarterly and yearly basis. And after any storm that's larger than 1 inch, there are inspections that need to take place, and they have to be documented. A lot of times, individual sites like this will actually hire someone to take care of all the inspections, just to make sure of the claims that at the end of the year, everything gets submitted to the local town engineer. I don't know if you have to deal with that, or if somebody else needs to.
It usually comes to the township, and there's logged here in the township through the clerk's office.
How much runoff is generated after the building compared to existing conditions?
There's a reduction in flow. Let's see, I'm trying to
I don't have the appendices, that's it.
Did you just take this from me?
No, I don't.
I have it in my pocket. There's too much stuff. So under the 2-year storm event, under today's rainfall intensities, we're allowed to have the existing conditions generate 4.9 CFS, which are cubic feet per second, and the proposed condition will be reduced down to 3 cubic feet per second. So pretty substantial reduction for the 2-year, and then for the 10-year, the existing conditions are 11.7 CFS and 7.2 CFS after the project is constructed. So you gotta kind of remember that almost every drop of water that's landing on a surface is having an opportunity to be infiltrated into the ground, which doesn't exist today. It's on a surface that's wooded, and it runs off probably like 60% of the water is running off with like a 0.3 runoff coefficient. So by opening the ground up and basically injecting and infiltrating into the ground, we're getting a much higher infiltration directly into the soil rather than having it run off. So that's one of the the objectives of the state stormwater regulations and the best management practices. So then under the 100-year storm event, it's 27.6 CFS are running off under existing conditions, and under the proposed would be 21.4. So all of the stormwater we're putting in, we're creating some substantial reductions in runoff. And it's also not draining down to Kumar Road, it's getting piped directly into the inlet. So all the residents on Kumar Road are going to see a substantial reduction of flow overland on the road itself.
And what happens when there's a storm that exceeds the design?
Well, it's 100, we're required to design for a 100-year storm event. And then we've also designed the 100-year storm event for the year 2100, which is about a 50% increase in the rate of rainfall intensity. So it's way under-designed for your lifetime.
I understand that, but my question was more what happens if storms?
Right. So there's an emergency overflow. There's an emergency overflow that would drain directly down to Kumar Road. And then the water would follow Kumar Road down to that inlet where Anderson Road's located. So no doubt if you're having, that type of rainfall, then there's going to be flooding everywhere.
So spill-off design is basically replicating conditions.
We do significantly reducing the runoff as required.
Hi, Terry McCall, Mansfield Meadows. You talked about the entrance on 57, and there's a gate going in.
So the gates are actually set back, right? So looking at exhibit A1, there's a gate, and then located, we have 4 parking spaces in front of the city, and then the gate. And then traveling up the access road is parallel 57, the gate is offset substantially from the intersection itself.
The gate would be right by the entrance. Because that's a downhill, and if trucks, cars, travel down that road.
Absolutely.
And that turn would be really.
We didn't want to have it here, we pulled it away as far as it made sense, and put it in that location.
So there's been like a traffic study on how that kind of an entrance
Right,
would
like I mentioned, we're getting a DOT permit.
those cars barreling down through stuff.
Right, like I mentioned, we're getting a DOT permit for that, so our traffic plan is being reviewed by the state. And it's commensurate with the type of traffic that we're anticipating coming in and out of the site, which will be some testimony.
Okay, and the sightlines will be good for people pulling out as well.
Sightlines are excellent.
That's another problem.
Well, the road is straight, and you can see well in excess of what's required.
Well, that depends. That depends. I know where we are.
Question, Brandon, question,
That depends if there's, if there's.
Right, because obviously there's maintenance that may be needed to make sure that the vegetation's cleared, so the sight lines are open.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? You might shut that down. Any other questions from the board? Bring on the next witness.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
At this time, we'll call our project architect. While we're getting set up, I'll pass out some exhibits. While we're getting set up, I'll pass out some exhibits that you'll hear about from our architect.
Just talking about because they have problems up there. They got it back to like 18. They just did it. Said to bring it back to 18.
No, just to swear you in, put raise your right hand, swear affirm that the testimony you're about to give is fully the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. State your name, spell your last four. My name is William McGeever, last name is spelled MC:GEEVER. Thank you, sir.
Mr. McGee, for the board, can you please provide your education, experience, qualifications, and licenses, please?
Sure. I am currently a private architect at Frank G. Ralph Architect PC, located at 35 Einmore Road in Melville. I graduated Mansfield Township Institute in 2015 with a bachelor's in architecture. Received my license in architecture in 2021 and have since then received licensure in a total of 7 states. My license is in New Jersey is in good standings. Testified, although not by this board, in several boards like this in the surrounding areas. Hopedale, Clifton, Peapack, Glasgow, Lebanon, Pine Hill, Bridgewater. My company has designed over 450 self-storage facilities in the last about 35 years. We've been in business for 43, which actually totals about 60 million square feet of self-storage. I'm currently involved in about 15 to 18 self-storage projects, 6 of which are within the state of New Jersey.
Requested that you accept it as your expert architecture.
Board accepts them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGee, what's been your level of involvement with this application?
So I've been involved with the design of the building floor plans, elevations, and the production of the render in conjunction with the civil engineering for landscape design.
Thank you. And did you prepare an exhibit for this evening?
So I do have passed out to each of you already a packet of the drawings that were submitted, just for quick reference. But the last 2 pages of that are 2 3D photorealistic renders. I have left the bottom right-hand corner blank for us to mark them. I believe we should mark them A2 for the first image, which is the entrance view of the building and site, and then the second one being the aerial view overhead would be A3, so A2 and A3 respectively.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to you when you are ready to describe the buildings for the board. Sure.
I'm actually just going to flip the boards here so that the constituents can see the renders, at least the first one is up. So, as Mr. Walker had described, there are 3 roughly 2-story buildings proposed for the site, totaling gross square footage of roughly 97,000 square feet, slightly over. Each of these buildings has access on the east and west side because we are built into the grade. So on building C, the primary building with the office, all of the interior loading, which is a 2-bay overhead loading door location interior to the building, utility closets, utility rooms, access for workers to be there. There is, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought right there. That building there does have egress stairs, but because there is minimal access, one on each side from the second floor. So the other 2 buildings, building B and building A, furthest to you on the upper right-hand of the image there, they have access and egress on both sides, no interior stairs, and as Mark mentioned, no interior elevators. Each of these buildings will be built of what's called Type 2B construction, which limits the overall size and height in not only stories but also feet, in order to make sure that they are safe from a fire standpoint. We comply with all the requirements to maintain a Type 2B classification. Each of these buildings will be equipped with a fire suppression system or fire sprinkler system, as many people know it. There will be incoming direct water line for that use only, separate from the domestic. That's typically a 6-inch line in order to service the buildings, where the domestic, I believe, is usually about a 1.5 inch at most. As Mark mentioned, no water usage on the domestic level. The building facade is not meant to be overly eye-catching or detract from the surrounding nature. It's meant to be there and be
simple, that it gives a nice clean appearance, but isn't like a flashy look at me in multiple colors. It's a combination of EIFS, IMP, and CMU block. CMU block is often used for durability. People driving here with the vehicle up against it give a nice hard surface just in case someone with a U-Haul truck is a little bit inexperienced. Clips the sides just to make sure we have no long-term damage and the building stays in a good appearance. The office is in the northeast corner of building C, as you'll see in this main image. There is storefront glass on the, I'm going to call it the first floor, although it is quite buried, and the second floor. The second floor is simply dummy glazing, in the sense that there is a dummy wall behind it that's glazing, and a dummy wall with just some storefront glass showing that there are storage units and fake ones behind it. Nobody accesses those units, they are simply there as a display. They are illuminated, and as Mark mentioned, we'll be dimming those lights after the hours of operation to terminate for the day. The loading area, which you'll see on the left side of A2 here, is 2 interior loading bays. And if you look at the floor plan, which I think provided to you all in building C, sheet A100, you'll see that that loading area on the lower right-hand corner of the drawing is shown. It's about 35 feet deep. It's a size enough for about a 26-foot box truck to get in there. This site is not expected to have any tractor trailers. That is not necessary for this size. Most of these units are sized for residential use. People are storing patio furniture from spare bedrooms, they're either downsizing, transitioning. It's not solely meant to be commercial use. This is really more for the residential and the neighbors around the area. So, each of these buildings are equipped with security features. There are not only security cameras that are all fed back on a closed circuit loop to the office area, but there are keypads in order to get into the building. Each of the doors into the loading area, into the main storage area, at each building is equipped with a keypad. Unless you have a code to get into that building, you can't get in. So if you rent in building C, you can't get into building B or A. That keypad can also be equipped with a fob, depending on the operator. In order to, as Mark said, get through the gates, if the operator chooses to not have some sort of attachment to your window, a QR code, RFID chip, or a fob you have on your keychain, then they get a code, they put it in the keypad, and as Mark said, as long as your account is up to date and you're in good standing with the facility, the gate opens. That gate is not open 24/7. This is not a 24/7 facility. As Mark mentioned, most of the hours of operation here are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The office is typically less than that. You don't always need to have someone in the office in order to access your unit. You rarely interact with anyone who's renting a unit unless they're signing up or terminating their lease. So the hours for the office typically run Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 6, Saturday 9 to 5, and sometimes on Sunday 9 to 2. This will always depend on the exact operator that is selected, but those are the operational standards for self-storage among the big REITs. Extra Space, CubeSmart, Public Storage, StoreQuest, those major ones. So the interior units, as you see from the floor plan on a 100, is a combination of 10 by 5, maybe down to 5 by 5, up to a 10 by 30 on occasion, or a 10 by 20. Most of the large units, unless we get some weird setup with the hallways in relation to the depth of an area, as you'll see at the bump out of buildings B and building C, are about 150 max, 200 square feet, but they go down to about 25 square feet in the hallways, because we do have some tight corner spots. So total-wise, there are proposed 701 total units. Building C is proposed at 382, Building B 204, and Building A 115. And that total is 701 units total across the entire site. And as Mark mentioned, the phasing plan starts with Building C, then bumps up into doing Buildings B and A. Let's see here. The roll-up doors on the exterior are security doors in the sense that they have little tongs that clip into the track of the roll-up. So not only is there a gate for security purposes, along with security cameras, the doors themselves have an additional security feature just to make sure that the possessions inside stay safe, and it reduces the interest of anyone causing any undue damage to the building.
It was mentioned about the wall-mounted signs.
It was mentioned about the wall-mounted signs. There are 2 proposed. You'll see up in the image here on A2. We just right now show the word signage because we do not have an operator selected. Each operator does have their specific sign package, and each of them have signage options that fit within the bounding box we show on our elevation, which has a rough square footage of 45 square feet. As Mark mentioned as well, we are allowed up to 100 square foot total for the site. Combine both of these two signage spots, one on building A and one on building C, and we're less than 100 square foot max. We definitely exceed the option of the 1 square foot per linear foot of frontage along Route 57, as each of these buildings are over 100 linear feet to begin with, so the cap is the 100 square foot total. These signs are proposed to be internally illuminated, but will be controlled by photo sensors and a time clock override if necessary, in order to not interfere with any of the neighbors. But they're also not facing the residences and the residential property across the street in the industrial zone. I believe our planner will attest that it's up the hill, that is not, should not be affected by any light coming from our property. And also going back to the 1 sign on building A and 1 sign on building C, phase 1, there will be only 1 side of the sign erected. If phase 2 goes into construction, then the second sign gets erected.
So overall, these buildings are mostly of metal construction, but
these buildings are mostly of metal construction, but there is a texture to the metal to give that eaves or drive-it is a specific company texture to it, so it doesn't look so industrial. We want a clean aesthetic that is going to improve the appearance from 57, but not attract so much attention. The roof, as discussed previously, is a single pitch from Route 57 to the rear of the property, and all the storm water from that is collected in a gutter at the rear, dispersed to downspouts, and from there into the underground retention basins. I'm going to flip the exhibit as shown here for the constituents over to A3, just so they can see that aerial view that you all have. I'll continue here for a second. The gate access into the site is set back, so that there will not be a hold up at the entrance to the property. And like these are the 2 gates that are also keep their plot control. So until you get to be on this point and to have an access code, you do not get into the rest of the facility. The building height did grow a little bit due to the single story pitch, but we are still well below the building height that is required for this residential zone. And with the average mean grade calculation, as Mark mentioned, we're under it by, in some cases, almost 10 feet. We do have some faux fenestrations on the facade. So the only glazing on the entire buildings, all 3 of them actually, are at this office and the level above. There's a little bit of glazing in the doors and loading area, just so you can see if that spot is taken or not. But besides that, all of these, what appear to be windows on the facade, are surface applied faux glazing composed of ACM panels and extruded aluminum frames. There's no penetration, there's no light coming out of them. It is simply an architectural element to improve the aesthetic of the exterior of the building. The building does have greenery around the base of it, and the roadway is offset of that in order to give some breakup between building and roadway. The site is mostly fenced in, but 100% fenced in from 57. As Mark mentioned, it does die back into the barn so that the site is secure. The building, the wall-mounted lights, as discussed, we do need to just update them on the elevation here in order to get their heights right, but they are below the height of the building, they are downward facing, and they are shielded. So Mark's photometric plan does show that we do comply with all the light maintained on the property and 0 light levels at the property lines from the residences. And overall, it's a self-storage building with very minimal use, in the sense that from an operations standpoint, these buildings, once leased up, get about 12 to 18 visitors a day. And with hours of operation between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., what's that? That's about 16 hours a day. We're looking at 1, 2, maybe 3 visitors per hour. So it is very low traffic generation, and of that traffic generation, typically the sellers show up with their personal residential vehicle, an SUV, a minivan, a pickup truck. Usually the U-Hauls, which are rented off-site, not rented on our property, show up for lease up and termination of lease. That's usually the only time those bigger vehicles are coming to the site. They're usually not coming into the site with a 13-foot box truck to go get your Christmas decorations. And as I mentioned again, these units are sized for the residential use. Primarily, these are not meant to be 100% commercial use. So each of the drive-up doors are behind the gate. Security-wise, that's the best way to go about it. And this usually has about 1, maybe 2 full-time employees at any time. With the hours of operation of the office, people needing to have vacation time and time off, it typically does require 2 full-time employees staggered throughout the day or on different dates. Let's see, is there anything on security, talk about that.
If you could also just touch on mechanical equipment that's exposed.
Yes, with the single slope roof, metal roof, it is not recommended to put the HVAC units on the roof. When you pad mount them behind the building. Now these are not the typical RTUs you see on big commercial buildings that are 20-ton units. They're typically about 5-ton units. So there may be 3 or 4 of them behind the building, let's say building B, that feed multiple what's called cassettes on the inside. These buildings, climate controlled, aren't cooled and heated as we do our homes. They usually run from about 80 degrees in the summer down to, in the winter, we heat to about 55, 60. So these AC units aren't running to the same capacity that a residential unit is running, because we're not trying to maintain that 4 to 5 degree controlled temperature. We are only trying to really mitigate the humidity inside and make sure that we heat it enough that pipes don't freeze and we have water damage. Is there anything else you have direct questions on?
I don't have any further questions for you in direct, unless you have anything you'd like to provide to the board.
I think at this time I welcome questions from the board and any constituents that would like to ask me questions.
Just from my knowledge, the number of units per floor on A, B, and C.
On A, B, and C. Yep, bear with me 1 second. Okay. So it does vary slightly on each floor. I'm going to start with building A. The first floor has 61 units. The second floor has 54 units. On building B, the first floor has 97 units. The second floor has 107 units. And building C, the first floor has 193 units, and the second floor has 189 units.
Thank you.
Mr. Kwame, any questions?
Yeah, just, how will residents
So inside of a lease agreement, when you sign up, it is understood that anything you bring into the site, you take out of the site. There is no set dumpster location for the tenants to use. It's on your responsibility to get your own waste off the site.
And that's typical for a self-storage
Absolutely,
facility.
that's in the typical leases for all the major REITs.
While we're discussing what a typical lease might look like, I know I think it was Board Member Bella had a question about that. Can you touch on whether or not most of the operators exclude certain items or regulate what you can store?
There's absolute limits on what you can store. You can't store explosive, firearms, anything that's flammable. All these things are laid out in a lease, and if you violate that lease, and like I said, there are security cameras in the buildings, people are observing building, what is being brought in and out. Your lease is terminated and you're evicted from the property. You have, I think it's usually 2 weeks to get your product out, or possessions out.
Looking at barriers?
I have heard that one come recently. I have not specifically seen a lease that excludes it, but I know that a lot of operators are going towards including that.
Did the larger units include convenience outlet?
No, the only convenience outlets are inside the building. They're usually the twist lock type, so that anybody who is looking to charge a phone, do anything that they're not supposed to in there, doesn't have power.
Okay, what type of lighting?
LED 4-foot linear strip lighting in the hallways.
So it's not a screwing?
Absolutely not, no. On the larger units, they do get an interior pump light, typically, just because the hallway light usually gets about 10 foot into a unit, but when you have a 20 or 25, 50 unit, we put an extra light inside to see deeper, but that is usually above the 8-foot ceiling height. Inside the self-storage units, usually a 6'8" roll-up door, 8 foot wide, 5 foot wide, or 3 foot wide, depending on the size of the unit. It's usually 8 foot, and then it's capped with chicken wire, so you can't get above it to access the light or any sort of power. You can't hop into the adjacent unit. That is your space. That's all you're able to unlock and access.
Okay, building C, I see a utility room.
Correct.
I see none in building B and building A.
Correct. So the primary.
Have to have a certain.
Correct. So the primary incoming power is into building C on the first floor. If you look at building B on sheet A100, as you come through that northern entrance, you'll come past the janitor's closet, and then you'll see a small 5x5 room called electric, ELEC. It might be small on the 11x17. I can pull it up on the large drawing slide.
Let's see.
Technology is a wonderful thing.
Oh, it's a northern corner.
I assume that's where you're.
The panel would be inside there. There would need to be an outlet in that spot. Don't spot for anybody who's not going to be able to access the maintenance.
And your time clocks for your exterior lighting would be
In that, or it would be in probably the primary room for the main building as far as the signage goes.
Is there another question about emergency genset? Anything there?
No generators are proposed for the site. Any emergency lights would be the 90-minute integrated battery backup. Interesting back there, it's 1 every 4 lights. It has the battery backup in the hallways, and then there would be battery backup lights at any exterior door.
Can you estimate the size of the pads for the HVAC units?
The concrete pad, I would estimate be 4 foot by 4 foot for each unit. As a 5-ton unit, typically I want to estimate as 42 by 42 base. Those are all inches, by the way.
So the interior here is not reconfigured.
So the interior here is not reconfigured,
Yes,
it's pretty much the way you said it. They're not partitions that are.
Yes and no. There are 2 types of construction when it comes to self-storage. This is called load-bearing, typical of any residential home. You go to studs and exit apart, put top it and bottom of it. Post and beam is another way to go, which we are not proposing for this. The load-bearing walls are pretty much set. There's headers over the hallway, so it's very hard to change up left to right on these pages because my load-bearing walls are shown page south to page north, which also is north to south here. You may be able to change up the interior dividing between the 2 units, the squiggle lines on the drawings. That may switch from, say, a 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 back-to-back to 10 by 15 to a 10 by 15. But you're not changing really quantity of units unless you do some major construction.
Based on a community like Mansfield with 701 units, what do you propose is going to be the percentage of rentals in this?
You're saying what the,
Is it going to be 50% full, 80% full, 100% full?
the goal is to get any self-storage facility to 90 to 95%. fall. With the amount of residential in this area, I think it's reasonable, but I have not done a direct study to correlate the two.
Well, even though phasing it, I also don't conduct those studies.
And that's because you're phasing it.
Well, even though phasing it, I also don't conduct those studies. Those are conducted by outside companies, which our company does not do.
But to that point, with having the phasing, if building C going up first is not leasing for whatever reason, they would hold off.
Correct.
On constructing the next two.
When your site work would be complete. Maybe this is
I believe there'd be no reason to do more site work than necessary for building C. We would need the stormwater basin that is to the west, because we are proposing to collect the stormwater over there. But there'd be no reason, and I would defer back to Mark to confirm this, to continue to develop west.
That type of phasing can be reduced into a developer's agreement with the municipality.
Yeah, so what happens to the area where D and A go while we're trying to fill up C?
I would have to defer that back to Mark.
Yeah.
We're open it up to the public now. Anybody have questions for the architect?
I'm going to open it up to the public now. Anybody have questions for the architect?
Smith, Mansfield Meadows. Quick question, I don't know if that's to scale or exact drawing. Because you look at it, it's a 2-lane road, Route 57 there.
Okay.
And you have a pull-off into this place, and there's absolutely no shoulder whatsoever. So anybody pulling in, going east, especially if it's a larger vehicle or something, you're gonna have, and that's going downhill. So you have no way of anybody getting around, or if they don't slow down, you've got potential for some real rear ending there. On the other side, pulling into Mansfield Meadows, there's a very wide shoulder so that you can pull off and the traffic continues up the hill, unobstructed. But what they're showing here is that you got a very nice green area, but no shoulder and very sharp turn. So there's got to be some additional signage or something else, because otherwise coming down that hill, especially with a lot of truck traffic, et cetera, it could be very dangerous getting in and out. There's no shoulder whatsoever, no place to go. So I don't know if that was taken into consideration and whether or not something could be done with that grass border area to improve the egress and or traffic flow.
I believe, as Mark was mentioned before, they are with the Department of Transportation to get a permit through them, which items like that will be addressed. I specifically dealt with the building, so I'm not really adequately educated to talk about ingress and egress on the site.
I'm just looking at the drawing.
I understand.
And from that drawing, I see a problem.
Understood.
Mr. Smith, just so you know, I don't believe, I could be crazy. I don't believe that this is going to actually conclude tonight, based on where the testimony is. I think that there may be an opportunity for the engineer to come back up to address this concerns.
Yeah, I think you're thinking right.
Any other questions from the audience? I saw somebody else raise their hand.
Actually, any other questions from the audience? I saw somebody else raise a hand.
I just want to share what you said. Depending on what you said, there's not much chance of this water.
Crap.
Depending on, we're getting close to 10 o'clock, and I know that we.
Yeah, but
It's to the board members, it's not my decision.
I want to see if we can get the architect done here. So come on up.
William Bunyan, 921. Let's start from that outside. The gate. Fire alarm goes off 3 o'clock in the morning. key holders 40 minutes away. How's the fire company?
So there's two options. One, there would be a mailbox to get into the building, right by the main entrance. To get through the gate, they would have their own code that they would punch in, gate would open.
Okay. And let's say contents catches on fire in one of the buildings, or, you know, how do you hook up? Is there a sprinkler system that we can hook up to where it's located?
So inside of the main building, right by the office, there are two utility rooms. One of them is designated for the fire suppression system. So it would be incoming water from there, and there would be a connection in each building for a truck to hook up. There would be a fire suppression sprinkler system throughout the entire 3 buildings with an incoming line of approximately 6 inches.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so what is the noise level at the nearest property line where the operation?
It should be minimal. I don't have an exact decibel level though. Vehicle access would be less than a roadway because it's, 1 to 3 occupants driving through the side of it within an hour.
I believe the state regulations require decibels to be at 65 abutting a residential property at nighttime and 80 during the day.
Those still apply if this is the use variance for industrial use.
Yeah, well, that's a state regulation that applies to any property abutting a residential property.
And what's the largest truck that the site can handle at a loading station?
We typically design for a 26-foot box truck as the largest.
Do you expect those?
No. No, 26-foot box truck would fill up roughly a 10 by 25 unit, which we have, I want to say, very few of. 10 by 25. Building C has 9. Building B has 10. Building A is showing, the largest unit they're showing there is 10 by 20, and that's a total of 12.
Okay. And then, what restrictions, if any, will be in place to keep customers and people from accessing the space outside of hours of operation?
The gate.
The gate.
There's 2 gates to get in, which you only can get in with the keypad, which denies access after certain properties.
There's a
So anyone can come in and drive up to this gate here, or that gate there at any time, but they cannot get through those gates. Outside the hours of operation.
Still like shadows.
And then how close is the proposed sign?
Proposed sign, total of 45 square feet, I believe it's roughly 3 foot tall by 15 foot wide. That's the area we're proposing. The signage a lot of times is letters, individual letters, so it's not taking up the full 45 square feet. Oh, the height, no, 3 foot is the space allotted on the wall. We're asking for the height of the wall and set.
The monuments.
Oh, the monument sign, I think it's 15 feet. I think 15 feet was built in some of the drawings, that's something that's outside of my scope. Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience for the architect? Okay, I'm going to close questions to the architect. At this point, I think we'll ask for a motion to continue.
Yeah, I just have a few questions to follow up, and it's to the architect's answer as well. I assume that the applicant would be amenable to conditions as to prohibited items, living storage, as part of the due variance.
So saying that there would be certain items that the board would request be prohibited in all leases?
It's services,
Yes.
costs, hazmat stuff. So,
Yeah, I believe that was part of the testimony, and we certainly agreed to a condition.
no internal, like, type of manufacturer.
Absolutely not. There is no businesses with employees operating out of this facility. It is solely bring in your possessions, take out your possessions. There's no, employee showing up to work out of a unit for an 8-hour day.
And, just to clarify as to the decimal levels, there's nothing internally except for the HVAC system that we generate. And the vehicles that are trained.
The vehicles would be the biggest decibel level as they travel around the site. There should be no other noisy equipment on the site except for the HVAC units.
And those are more typical of what you do in a commercial building.
But there'd be less than a commercial building because often those are rooftop units of 20 tons. These are typically a couple of 5-ton units. That way, you're not running all 4 of them at once. You're running one when that zone calls for it.
So that's really the only source of noise pollution that's going to be.
Pretty much.
And the lighting is just as indicated with
LED wall-mounted lights, shining down, shielded, 0 light levels at the property line.
Okay. Thank you. No problem. Thanks. Just storage, the thing there, like if somebody was a hobbyist and makes models, he can't go there 4 hours a day instead of a bench made, or would that, something like that be allowed?
That is most likely something not allowed. You're going in to store your hobby items and collect the materials to go do it at home, but nobody will have power inside of their units to operate any sort of equipment, and any sort of daily operations is frowned upon and actually probably written in the lease to be excluded and rights for termination.
That's why it's battery powered tools nowadays.
Correct, and that's why it's
noisy generator.
Yeah, many of those things would be grounds for termination of lease.
This might not be a question for you, but it's in your picture.
Sure.
So there isn't a fence entirely around the facility.
Correct.
So it's like a stone wall on the back side.
There's a stone wall on the back side, there's a row of plantings as well as a berm that prevents, simple egress.
Prevents vehicles.
Pretty much, yes, because that's the biggest concern is vehicles going to have to drive up unit doors, and we protect that.
Yes, but it is also.
Doesn't stop people on foot.
Yes, but it is also a lot harder for people on foot to cause much mayhem to a metal door than it is for a vehicle.
No, I wasn't thinking about that.
Okay. We'll have to traverse through the residential property behind us to get to it. Really has to be determined to it.
So we're looking for a motion to continue this to next month's meeting, which is, what date is that, Chairman?
September 21st.
It's a song about that.
I'll make a motion to continue to 21st.
I'll second that.
We got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Waters?
Yes.
Speller?
Yes.
Yes, so for the audience, there's not gonna be another notice.
Yes, so for the audience, there's not going to be another notice. This meeting will commence again September 21st.
Thank you, Board, we appreciate it.
Then the next regular meeting.
Thank you, Board, we appreciate your time this evening.
Any old business, Joanne? Still there? Move on.
Since I'm seeing
Please, we gotta continue our meeting here. Payment of bills? Motion second, roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. We'll never get open meeting. At this point, I open a meeting in public.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lane, but I have one quick question.
I noticed it, but I don't drive in and out of there, so.
I inspected it the day after they cut it down, and also goes around the road. It needs to be desired.
Back by the second drawing down the right, the property is wooden, it's mounted with a disconnect and so the street light is made fast and by understanding on the responsibility of Mansfield Meadows Homeowners Association to pay for the lighting here in each perpetuity. Is that something that is a plan to create a box, a house, or something other than a piece of wood or any special stuff?
I would like to review it, I don't know.
I didn't even touch upon it.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Thank you.
That's typical for record shows, right? Well, you're gonna follow, I mean, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Would they be responsible for putting up themselves? What would their needs be responsible? What about
If you look at Mansfield School sign, they have the same basic setup there. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, it's there, but it's a piece of wood. Yeah, or at some point,
We should take the whole thing, just shut the water. But that's.
Any other business?
Did we want to talk about escrow report? This is the first.
I looked at them.
First one I've done.
I see we have some deficient ones.
There is a new requirement adopted by ordinance, correct?
Yes.
For keeping escrows at 50%. So the report I provided, I'll be going through that just to see what active. There are more active ones that I put on the list. There are some others that are in engineering that are still like Dunkin' Donuts. They're kind of different. There's a couple I didn't put on here that are beyond, so nothing's gonna just apply to the new ones now. Assuming.
Well, the ordinance doesn't specify that, it
Yeah,
applies
I
to
did
all.
that based on adoption
It's
of the
just that we do a retroactive, I understand, but that's what the ordinance says.
So, and I proposed an escrow agreement to have reviewed by probably township attorney to make sure there's nothing in here that's not allowed.
So this would be for new
For
applicants?
new applicants.
So it would be a requirement of new applicants to
They're
sign this?
agreeing to 50% escrow. I just want to make sure I have all the stipulations. I don't know if there's anything else. And so we have the couple of items that are well in arrears. The township has been referred to those for whatever action you choose. APM is still active. We're waiting for them to come back and return.
Question about ABM. We gave them clarification about the boiler. Was that separate?
That was separate.
So we can close on that, and then we can,
Yep.
do you know what that escrow amount is for that, if they're still behind? Exactly what
For
the
that,
sections
no.
are.
For that, no.
Okay.
Just the site plan.
Was there escrow for that, or no?
Yes, that was filed separately as a zoning interpretation.
Okay.
We'll have a whole separate
And
application.
close that out then?
It's not totally closed.
But they're not clear on that part?
Yeah.
Another question,
Just a little bit, just because there are others older that we try to pursue first.
the zoning officer reports are bringing back the court on July 28th. Do you have any idea what the outcome of that was with them?
I haven't heard.
Last we heard, their attorney bailed on them.
Yeah, they,
That was,
Mr. Blount is no longer their attorney. That was in
that says something.
March or April, they told us that. This extra report that I provided, which is out of our system, includes everything. You know, I typically don't manage driveway escrows, but they are on here. And it was suggested that that would also apply. I don't know if the 50% would apply to those as well. That makes sense. I don't know.
That would be up to the governing body if they want to do that.
You know, but I'm not involved in those, so either you and I have to somehow have to do it if I'm managing that part. Food for thought. Was there anything else? Escrows?
Okay, it's time for Ron's motion.
Make the motion adjourned.
Thank you.